In the heart of the state-of-the-art, at the dawn of the next stage in entertainment, you found No Proscenium.
You have indeed found No Proscenium, the voice of everything immersive. I'm your host, Noah Nelson, coming to you from Los Angeles, and welcome to episode 367. This week on the show, Scarlet Kim, Associate Artistic Director of Innovation and Strategy at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, is here to talk about the QUILLS FEST, where immersive tech and live performance come out to play, which is running now until the end of the month. We talk about why one of the best-known theater companies in the United States is commissioning new XR performance works, and a lot more. Then, we're joined by Greg Lombardo, Vice President and Head of Experiences at the one and only Netflix, which currently has multiple live immersive experiences touring the world, including the Stranger Things experience, which is opening its Los Angeles stand this weekend. We get into just why it is that Netflix has gotten into the immersive experience business and what Lombardo thinks is so special about the form. All that, and I'll babble a bit at you at the end, including my off-the-cuff notes on that Stranger Things experience, which I did see last night. But first, before we do that, London No Pro backers, don't forget to check the Patreon feed for your 20% off discount for Rematch's Rumble in the Jungle. This is a recreation of the iconic fight between George Foreman and Muhammad Ali, conjured through projection mapping, blended with performance, and surrounded by a festival atmosphere that aims to capture the vibe of Fight Night 1974. That discount is good for the February 28th and March 1st shows. Look at us talking about 2023. Big thanks to No Pro sustaining backer Richard Ayers for hooking us up with this. Backers, check the feed. Speaking of our Patreon backers, we remain on the right side of the halfway mark of our $5,000 a month funding goal, and right now just 10 shy of the 400 backer mark. Can we do it? Yes, we can. Noah, we can do it. What is going on? That, coupled with the support from Houseworld New York City this month, is helping us build out our runway deeper into 2023. I'm less worried about money than I was like a week ago. That's what's going on. And backers should be on the lookout next month, because not that less worried, all right? Like, I'm still worried. It's just we've bought ourselves a month. Look how excited I get for buying ourselves a month. What if I bought us a year? What if we bought us a year? Backers should be on the lookout next month. I'm going back and forth between reading and not reading. Backers should be on the lookout next month because Unique Trapman O'Brien is going to be offering up some rare telelibrary slots. Oh, you know they're rare. As part of a fundraising auction. It's an action auction in December for January sessions. So we're doing an auction for backers of telelibrary slots in December for January calls. More on that after the Thanksgiving break. And yes, non-backers will also have a shot at it as well. Backers will get first crack at it, though. That means our latest backers, Republic of Haven, Paragzar, and Eric Horn will all get a crack before, well, along with the other backers, before non-backers do. So, maybe get in there, up your chances if you're looking for a telelibrary slot. Anyone who joins us at patreon.com/noproscenium will have access to that, access to the 20% discount, access to more as more folks come through and show their support. It really not only brightens my day, but it creates that umbrella we need to keep on going and keep on getting word about everyone's shows out there. If you already support us, and I know so many of you who listen do, or if times are tight, like they are for me and like for a lot of folks right now, but you listen to the show, take a moment to drop us a review on iTunes. We're really going through a wonderful period right now. We're getting some really big interviews. Folks are going to be looking at the show like never before, and those iTunes reviews really help. Or your podcatcher of choice if iTunes isn't your thing, just helping us spread the word Facebook, LinkedIn, that website that's dying right now. Any of it helps. It's silly, but it does. And of course, we're also on the lookout for community partners who are up for working out special deals for our backers. Hit me up at noah@noproscenium.com and we'll iron out the details. I got a couple of people I got to write back to because I have been on the road. As always, big thanks to our sustaining backers, Samuel Mustry, Chris Woolman, Samantha Davison, Eric Shamlin, Elaine, Jay Bushman, Jerome Joseph Genties, Wynn Thorne, David Bassick, Richard Ayers, Lonnie Hanson, Sydney Guillory, and Jan Budman. Thank you all for keeping us going. And with that, Scarlet Kim, and then Greg Lombardo. Joining us on the show today is the Associate Artistic Director and Director of Innovation and Strategy at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. That's up in Ashland, for those of you who might not know. That would be Scarlet Kim. Hello, Scarlet.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
The QUILLS Fest is happening right now out of OSF, running through November 30th. We're going to get into that in a second. But before you go there, I wanted to kind of give a little bit of background and also kind of get a bit of Scarlett's story of getting into OSF and where the QUILLS Fest comes from. The first time I met you, you were directing kind of an interactive theatrical jukebox is how I thought of it, at this bar in Hollywood, which I don't even think is there anymore.
It's not.
Yeah, that was back during your CalArts grad school days, if I'm remembering correctly.
I believe so. Yeah, it's a memory I haven't thought about in a long time. So thanks for conjuring it.
It's funny to me just because, I love the way the flow of this little immersive world we have goes, because you can meet someone, see their work in a completely random non-theatrical location, 5-6 years ago, and then fast forward and they're an associate artistic director at one of the most significant Shakespeare festivals, if not the most significant Shakespeare festival in the country, but working in digital stuff and doing XR theater. So it's wild to me.
It is wild, and it's so great to be in touch with you again, Noah. I feel like all the kaleidoscopic memories of the LA immersive scene. It's it's a community that I feel very home with and at. So I've been intersecting with a lot of those folks through QUILLS Fest, actually. So it's very much on my mind.
First, before we get too far into the origin story, but break down, how do you pitch QUILLS Fest?
Well, QUILLS Fest is a festival where live performance and immersive technology come out to play. So play, I think, is a really important part of QUILLS Fest. It's a sandbox. It's a playground. It's a space that celebrates process and the artist's journey. And I think this is very special because a lot of XR spaces, I feel, are centered around presenting final products, but we really curated and produced QUILLS Fest around featuring immersive projects and XR projects at various stages of the life cycle.
When you came to Oregon, when you came to OSF, was this always part of your plan to have an XR festival, or has this sort of emerged over the course of the past couple of years? Because if memory serves, the first QUILLS Fest was last year, while we were still kind of crawling our way out of the wreckage of the high pandemic. And yeah, there's been so much shift in what people think of as theater. So I'm really curious about how this one all came together in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So our artistic director, Nataki Garrett, a trailblazing arts and theater leader, when she started her tenure at OSF before the pandemic, digital strategy was a core part of her vision. OSF is a destination theater historically, meaning people travel to Ashland, Oregon, 400,000 people or in a year travel to OSF in Ashland, have the festival experience. And Nataki's vision is about how do we actually expand access to OSF's artistry? How do we actually define destination theater expansively so that it's not just about our 3 physical stages, but actually our 4th stage, which we're calling the O digital stage. So part of that, Nataki's vision was to launch QUILLS FEST last year. So when I joined the team at OSF about a year and a half ago, my first task was to really launch QUILLS FEST. So that was one of our first cornerstone projects, was to commission theater artists, match them with creative technologists, and commission them in creating new XR projects. And it's our 2nd year down the road.
Has as part of the inviting people outside of coming to Ashland for the destination part of the festival, has anyone talked about maybe bottling the Lithia water and sending it to people as part of their QUILLS experience?
Oh, that's hilarious. I mean, Ashland, it's like Disneyland of theater, like it's like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
never-ending summer camp. So there's a lot of quirky things about it, and the Lithia water is one of those things.
Is the number one. Yeah. I've only been to OSF once, and that was my senior year of high school. We drove the
Oh my
bus up from
God.
the Bay Area with my entire high school theater class, and we
Wow.
like hung out there for like a couple of days. It was perfect. It was amazing. Like, it's so good that part of the reason why I haven't been back is I don't want to sully the memory because it just like sits there. But I can still remember the shows. Like, one of them was this really just like awesome Richard III, and then I didn't get to see it, but they did like a French farce that year, and I didn't see the show because we got to pick different things. I think there was a Winter's Tale in the Black Box Theater is what we saw.
Mm.
Uh, but we got to see the backstage. We got to see the turning of the turntable
Mm.
from Richard to the French farce, and getting to see everything set up, and it just like blew our 17-year-old minds like totally away.
Yeah, it is really, OSF is the first theatrical storytelling experience that a lot of young people have. And that's been a
Mm.
really core part of how we think about our digital work as well.
So, how do you approach this idea of introducing people to digital performance? What's the brief on that?
Well, theater and technology are 2 spaces that are inaccessible in many ways, have barriers in many ways. So really, uh, QUILLS FEST embodies this uh, our commitment to creating a radically accessible space at the intersection of these 2 spaces. And I think my favorite part of what I do at OSF is matchmaking, really matchmaking
Mm.
theatrical storytellers and folks practicing in the immersive and creative technology space to create bespoke forms to build new collaboration paradigms. And that's all based in this belief that I think artists who work with live forms, live performance and theater, have a lot to contribute to how we play in the tech sandbox.
Let's drill down into that a little bit. What are you finding that theatrically minded folks bring to these forums? I note that through the vast majority of pieces in the fest this year, and maybe we can get into some highlights in a minute, are 360 videos. So, is there? Take us into that. What does theater bring to that format?
Well, I think one big thing is about process and iteration. I think as theater artists, we're constantly iterating and constantly prototyping. And I feel like that approach of making work, making collaborative work, is something that is really exciting to kind of put in a creative technology context, and vice versa. Like I love bringing in kind of how we think about play testing, for example, into the theater world. So it kind of
Mm.
mashing up all of these ways in which we develop work and play, and kind of creating new bespoke ways of making work. So I feel like process, was a really part of breaking the boundaries of process and bringing together artists from different disciplines, backgrounds, mediums, industries to kind of see what happens. I think, you mentioned 360 videos. I feel like one of the specific inquiries has been about what are our habits in creating theater, film, these kind of more practices that I've been calling it habits, or kind of paradigms of what
Mm.
we assumptions, paradigms of assumptions, and what are ways we can kind of imagine new ways of thinking about our relationship to the audience. So I feel like in 360 videos, we've had rich investigation around what is the do we what does it mean to think about the cinematic frame? What does it mean to think about the audience's agency? How do we think about immersion and interactivity as theater artists, which is something we think about, and bringing into this form that has a cinematic component, but also allows us access to think about immersion in a different way. So 360 videos and film has been a really I would say, popular format when we bring together theater artists and creative technologists.
You mentioned that one of the things you're doing with this festival is bringing, it sounds like you're commissioning work as part of it.
Yes,
Am I picky up on that? Good. Uh, sorry, I responded to your
absolutely.
yes like after the fact. I feel like I'm conducting like a radio thing across like several like solar systems for a quick second. So are there pieces in this year's that you've commissioned specifically?
Yes. So commissioning new work is really central to Quills Fest. And I think I am so excited that we are resourcing this work and supporting artists' journey and really what it means to create new work in this space, because I feel like I mean, I'm an artist first. And when I think about opportunities or supportive context to create new work that plays with technology, there aren't that many. So I feel very excited and proud of the kind of incubator that we've created. And the way that we've curated these commissions are all through um, building relationships with artists. So we didn't curate projects, we curated artists.
Mm.
And a lot of these stem from conversations or just sessions, a conversation, studio visits with artists where we're like, hey, I really resonate with the way you play with liveness or agency or immersion in a in-person context. What's something that you've always dreamt of doing that would be fun for you to play with immersive technology? So a lot of conversations started like that, and we really think about centering the artist. We really think about how can we holistically support the artist so that they can actually experiment and prototype and really present whatever, share out wherever the artist is at in their work. So we had a number of new commissions this year, two commissions that kind of started last year, but we continue to follow, are Anaquad led by theater artist Tai Defoe, who's a multidisciplinary choreographer artist, in partnership with Dove Heischmer and Alpha Rats, and they created this gamified Anishinaabe folktale-based bear medicine dance. It's a really unclassifiable experience, VR experience. So we commissioned this project last year, and this year we did motion capture of Tai performing physical dance and captured that into the VR world. Another project that is a 2-year long commission continuing is Ordinary Gesture. Theater artist Raja Feather Kelly, who just won the Tony for choreographing A Strange Loop on Broadway, paired with Cyril Svilsky and Ilyas Silak, who ended up becoming our creative technologist in residence, created this, again, an unclassifiable experience they talk about it as kind of surrealizing the experience of empathy. So you walk around in this um, uh, house where you bump into mysterious figure who make you question what ordinary gestures in day-to-day life are and how they're loaded with all of these things. So those are commissions from last year that we're like committed to continuing to support because the artists are finding new stuff continually and evolving. There's a number of new commissions from this year. There's so many. There's a partnership we have with the Park Avenue Armory in supporting this artist, now Bustamante, and exploring her investigation of reinventing the speculum, like the speculum as in used in a gynecological exam. So this project is a first draft of an ongoing collaboration that is kind of imagined to become a VR roller coaster. A partnership with New York Live Arts to support Nehal El Hadi and Ayodamola Okusende in this writing from Nehal around Habub, or a Sudanese sandstorm. It's a deeply personal story, but it's also thinking about sand as a medium and metaphor for the Black diaspora. So these are just two examples of very early stage work that started out as like, hey, we would love to support you in playing in this totally new sandbox that actually have a lot in common with what you already do in the world of theater and performance.
You mentioned that, these commissions, these collaborations are coming out of studio visits and connecting with artists. How much of your job is going out and searching for folks, or are they coming through OSF in a different theatrical context, and then you're talking to them about digital, or are you encountering folks at other festivals? I wonder if you could peel back the curtain a bit here, how that process works.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. I would say all of the above. And that is, like I said, the best part of my job where I get
Yeah.
to do studio visits with artists. And a lot of it, I mean, one of the things that I'm excited about is OSF becoming a playground where artists come and get to do multiple things. So, for example, Sharifa Ali, who was a resident artist of the O Digital stage last year, directed a play on our live stage, created two films that went on to win a million awards and did super amazing, and did two VR experiments, one of which was a commission for QUILLS FEST last year. So I love that we're able to be a kind of place that can support an artist in expressing their practice in multiple mediums and multiple outputs, a place where an artist can explore performance practice without having to determine the output in their process of exploration. I would say I'm also spending a lot of time in kind of going out into spaces that OSF hadn't really considered spaces to engage in the past. So, and really engaging artists there who are interested in this intersection of theatrical storytelling and technology. So this year, the artists Meng Tai Zhang and Lemon Guo, I've been following their work for many years. I think they're one of the most exciting voices in VR today. Their piece Diagnosia, which was presented at Tribeca, I think is a real trailblazing project of narrative VR. So we presented that piece in this year's QUILLS Fest, as well as a new commission. We commissioned them to make a new piece, which is a early stage work in progress VR opera exploring polyphonic singing. So I love that I'm very excited about the relationship we're building with Meng Tai and Lemon, who don't necessarily come from a theater background, although they are theater artists in a way, actually, but are more kind of embedded in the VR and film festival world so that we can build bridges. There's already exciting conversations happening between those artists and the theater artists who've never done VR before, and etc.
The kickoff event for this, at least part of it, I'm not sure if you did something in Ashland, but the part that I know happened because we got invited to it was in New York at the top of the month. I'm a little bit curious there. I know the whole ethos of bringing the destination to folks, but how does a theater festival in Oregon wind up doing their pop-up in New York City? Tell me that story.
No, it was a truly ecstatic and joyful weekend because we got to meet some of the artists that we've been working with for like 2 years for the first time in person. A lot of our artists and creative technologists are actually based in New York, so we thought of the pop-up for the launch weekend as a kind of more of like a gallery opening actually, or like a special invitation to experience the work in person and to build community rather than like a super presentational context. We have this incredible partnership with the NYU Tandon studio. They have an amazing motion capture facility and volumetric capture studio. So NYU Tandon actually sponsored 3 projects this year for motion capture. Anaquad, Ordinary Gesture, and Haboob, the 3 projects that I already mentioned. And so because we had done that production work there, it really felt like inviting the world to enter into the behind the scenes of or the artist's studio. I think a lot of big part of QUILLS Fest is demystifying the scariness of XR production. I feel like it can feel so inaccessible and techie, quote unquote techie. I'm doing air quotes with my hands. And I feel like a lot of the launch weekend was, let's do some demos. Let's actually have audiences come in and you can get into a mocap suit and we can have a dance party. I'm very grateful for the folks at NYU Tandon who were super game about like thinking about this as you too can be the author of this work, and we're building a space where you can come and try it out yourself. So maybe you can do something next.
One of the other pieces that's on the slate is something called the Cymbeline Project, which I think y'all are generating out. So a 10-episode digital series referencing, of course, Cymbeline, which is one of the lesser known Shakespeare plays, by like I think in the order of magnitude. So I'm wondering if you could tell us about that piece and how it's in the fest and why that particular play, because it is one that tends to be overlooked in the canon.
Absolutely. So one more piece of context about QUILLS Fest is it feels more it's like a celebration of the smorgasbord and the buffet of all that we're doing in this intersection all year, rather than we're just curating and producing for the festival presentation. So Cymbeline Project, we wanted to kind of share that as part of the festival because it's one of our cornerstone projects that we've been really developing for the past 2 years. Nataki, our artistic director, had the vision of, what if Cymbeline, the play, is a weird play? It's often called a problem play, like you said, because it's not a comedy, it's not a tragedy. What is this? I call it a K-drama. It's hectic. It's a collage already. So Nataki was like, what if we do it as an episodic? And I, as the showrunner, curated the slate of lead artists who would come in and provide perspective and aesthetic to each of the episodes. So there's a entirely stop motion puppetry episode, and there is a choose your own adventure browser-based game episode. There is a 360 video episode, and so on. And it's a really interesting convergence of actually we're using the Shakespearean text. There are characters. Like it's actually we barely cut any of the text, so it's actually very. We actually have been not even calling it an adaptation because I believe that to do Shakespeare is to do it anew, and this is a great example of we're actually doing the whole text with the whole story and the whole characters. We're in separating it into episodes and really centering collage as a organizing principle. We have the opportunity to bring out the story in a new way. And this actually brings up an interesting point about, we've been talking and thinking a lot about story versus presence, which are not mutually exclusive, but I feel like sometimes there's a kind of tension between the two, or that's a question that often comes up working with theater artists and creative technologists. Like sometimes things feel like a fancy tech demo that doesn't have narrative impact, or sometimes something feels like a deeply meaningful story, but the tech doesn't work. So we're kind of like, how do we actually think about narrative and experience as something that can be that's not like diametrically opposed. It's something that's interwoven. And I think that is the strength of really engaging theater artists in this space.
Yeah. Well, and particularly, breaking out the classics and breaking and remixing some of the text, or even just using the text whole cloth, and letting people explore what does it mean to create a theatrical space that people can explore, or situate the audience inside. Because having those classic texts, having things from the canon, although something like Cymbeline, not a lot of people know unless they're a giant Shakespeare nerd. I won't say anything about myself, but it's probably obvious by now. It gives the audience something to anchor into, so they can, it's familiar. It's a familiar story. They won't get lost, and so they can kind of let themselves drift into the world, or ask questions about their own place in it, because they kind of know what's coming around the corner, at least in terms of
Absolutely.
the narrative.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a huge believer in parameters actually inspire creativity and freedom, and I feel like the
Mm.
Cymbeline project is a great example of that. I think in the kind of controls of the experiment that we set up, we found a lot of boundary defying creativity. And I mean, I think that's what Shakespeare did. Shakespeare was a populist artist that used the most cutting edge technology of his time. So
Yeah,
like that's what we're doing here.
I love it. Well, Scarlett, when can people, how can people tap into Quills Fest right now?
Yeah, so QUILLS Fest is available for access until the end of November via a headset with your tether to your PC, or via web browser. We're partnering with Vast, which is a social and festival platform, VR platform founded by Beijing-based Sandman Studios. You previously might have come across them at South by Southwest. Um, you can download, and the instructions are on our website, quillsfest.osfashland.org, where you can download the full VR experience via a tethered headset. And this can be any headset, including an Oculus Quest tethered to your PC, and explore the full experience right in your headset. You can also, I'm very excited to be able to offer this year, access QUILLS Fest VR World via web browser. And this is a bit of an experimental feature because it is through various servers around the world. We're cloud rendering our VR world so that folks can actually walk around in the world using the WASD and arrow keys right in your web browser. I think that's the future of making VR more accessible and more something that folks can interact with more fluidly. So you can find how to access the QUILLS Fest VR world on our website. And uh, I think VR is most fun when it's social. So I hope that I bump into you while I'm checking out where I'm in the space. One more way of experiencing QUILLS Fest is just on the website. The panels, conversations from the launch weekend are all there as videos. And you can also view projects as a 2D walkthrough if you don't have access to a headset. In the web browser version, you can't see some of the 6 degrees of freedom projects, meaning projects that are heavier and require more processing power. You may not load, or will not be able to access in the web version. So you can actually just watch a 2D playthrough on the website, so you can still have access to it. You all can email quills@osfashland.org with any technical questions or questions about access, or if you just want to talk to the artist or want a buddy to give you a tour. This is we're happy to do that. We learn a lot as producers by talking with audiences and visitors, so we're always happy to kind of tag along in a tour or a guided experience.
Well, Scarlett, that's all fantastic. And I'll remind everyone, tickets to get into Quills Fest online are just $10, and the pass gets you access for the whole month, which is quite nice. It gives you time to check it out. And thank you all so much for making a web browser version of it. It's going to give a lot more people a chance to check things out. So, one way or another, I know we're going to talk again, and hopefully talk ahead of a Quills Fest 3 in 2023.
Absolutely. It's super exciting to be in touch with you again, Noah. And yeah, it's just the second year of Quills Fest. So we are already scheming and strategizing about what are our new projects for Quills Fest 23, and also how can we continue supporting the artists that we've been supporting. I'm always excited about chatting with folks across spaces, across industries. So I hope that folks who are listening, please reach out. We're in a really exciting time in our journey at OSF, expanding the definition of theater and theatrical storytelling through interacting with the immersive world. So looking forward to making more connections with folks in the immersive omniverse.
Odds are our next guest is responsible for introducing more people to immersive experiences than anyone else in the United States, whether they're exploring Hawkins, Indiana from Stranger Things or dressing up for the Queen's Ball in the world of Bridgerton. We've got a few minutes now with Greg Lombardo, Vice President and Head of Live Experiences at the one and only Netflix, on the eve of the debut of the Stranger Things experience here in Los Angeles for that part of its tour stop. Greg, thanks for taking some time out of your packed schedule to talk with us.
Hi, Noah. Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
I'm just gonna cut right to it because I know there's a bazillion things that you've got on your plate. So the big thing I want to know is, how do you measure success with these experiences? That's something that comes up a lot in the immersive community. It's like, what is it that you're looking to achieve here?
Sure. First and foremost, the goal is to give the fans of these shows, of these films, a chance to step into the world that they know and love, experience it from a new angle, widen their aperture, and bring them a real visceral sense of joy, and hopefully a sense that they have their hero moment in that story that they love. So for us, it's always sort of thinking about that end user and making sure that at the end of the day, we're delivering a truly authentically feeling experience uh, that provides them with that deeper relationship with the series of the movie.
We've got Stranger Things and Bridgerton. They're both on tour right now, and Money Heist has popped up in many cities. Why is Netflix so interested in immersive experiences? As a studio, you've done, I think, more than anyone else, particularly with stuff that is not just, say, a Comic-Con activation.
Yeah, I think, look, we're always on the lookout for new and innovative ways to engage with our members. And certainly, you know, our goal is to entertain the world. And when you think about this, this membership that really spans almost every country, there's so many stories on a daily basis that members engage with, and they fall in love with. And I think what we're trying to do is, most importantly, provide them with another viewing angle, right, into those stories. So for us, by offering an in real life experience that is grounded in those stories that are brought to life on screen, it's a way for us to just further connect with those members and hopefully give them another reason to love Netflix.
What do you personally find interesting about this immersive form? I mean, this is your live experiences are your life at this point. So I'm wondering what's interesting or fun or cool about this world building and leading people through these interactive worldscapes.
I I think coming I think my view on this is probably sharpened uh, as a result of coming off of the pandemic, right? I think a lot of us have reshaped our views of a lot of things during that, and it's a chance to, I think, kind of revisit what human connection is at its heart, right? And
Yeah.
I think we're all craving it more and more. We're all sort of returning into the world, looking for ways to connect socially, looking for ways to share an experience. And so I love immersive experiences because they really do that, right? They deliver on that, that promise of connection. And it's it's remarkable to see the kind of community of people out there that come together for an experience, right? You've got that kind of core diehard fan who's seen every episode of a show, who knows every line from the season, all the way to like the casual viewer, and what they're all there for is to just share in something unique that they can do together. And I think to me that's what makes these types of experiences really magical and I think meaningful.
Have you seen sort of the approach? I love that bit about the pandemic. We've found a lot of that to be true as well. In some ways, there was just this pent up desire to get back out there and connect. Have you seen the approach to making these kind of change uh, as you're watching people go through them, as you're watching this social dynamic to it? Because it's different from, say, the drive-through experiences that were happening at the height of the pandemic, and to some degree it's even a little different from what was very popular beforehand with the Instagram palaces and the selfie palaces that everyone was doing, which could be fun to go with some friends to take photos, but it was mostly about you as an individual in some ways.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Before it was sort of a celebration of self, right? And I think the environment was currency in a way, like for our social channels, right? It was a way to kind of trade in on the value of being there to kind of tell your friends about it on the social network. But it was really individualistic. And you think about, I think about the drive-in too that we did in LA for back, in what, October of 2020. And that was, that I think was really, for us, it was just a pursuit of giving fans a moment of joy when they needed it most from one of the only places where we felt safe, which was inside our cars. But it was really tough to sort of pivot in a way and try to create, how do you create connection when you're in your car in this little bubble? And what we found was really the magic there was the simple notion that when you were it started in a Star Court, in the parking lot of the Star Court, and there was sort of like a curated party being hosted. And everyone was coming for a reunion at Hawkins High. So that was the sort of premise that got everyone sort of to drive in. And what we found was like we were looking for ways to communicate and for the fans to communicate with one another. And we landed on this very simple concept that like the MC of that show that sort of preceded the vehicle-based experience in the parking garage was able to kind of solicit responses by having people beat their horn. So it was like this simple conceit of like use your horn, which in LA we like the notion of like encouraging people to use their horns is sort of counterintuitive, but it became this amazing way for the community of guests to communicate with one another and to communicate with the host of the show. And I think that was sort of for me this moment of like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to take this type of learning and this experience and then really apply it to an in-person environment again. And I think what you see now, to your point, is this move away from like the Instagram museum, which is very much about the self and putting yourself in that space, to like a celebration of community and taking part in something special with others. And you see that like in the Queen's Ball for the Bridgerton experience, that is really up front. It's about people are spending quite a bit of time and putting a lot of thought into how they're going to show up at the experience, in what is Regency for them, the way they dress, but it is very clearly they are coming to share that love of the show, that love of that story with others, and it really it comes to life on the dance floor. There's really nothing about that experience that is not meant to be shared with others. And I think that's also, true of a lot of the stuff we've done now with like Money Heist, post pandemic, where you're joining the La Casa de Papel gang. You're working with others very closely to solve the challenges and kind of, jump the hurdles required to get into the vault and get the gold as a team. And what's nice about that is that's the show, right? The show is about this sort of like band of individuals who come together, almost against the odds and achieve the unbelievable. And that's a great platform for an experience, right? So, and I think that's really what I see, a lot more of that now. And a lot more of it is a focus on a community of people that are brought together. And then through these various experiences, they're encouraged to come together, right? So I think that's super exciting, and that's a definite change from the way things were done pre-pandemic.
I know I'm catching you in between things, so I got one more question for you, which is, without giving away necessarily like the IP involved, what's something that's kind of what's an ambition you have for the form? What's something kind of dancing in your head that you'd like to see your teams manifest here? Because you've gotten to play with a lot of different types of experiences at this point.
Yeah. How do I answer that without giving away? Well, look.
What is your next show? Give me all the details where it's starting. So,
I think, to me, it's about how do we scale that sense of community and engagement, right? And right now we have multiple units of these experiences that are touring to cities around the world, obviously in an effort to super serve our members where they are, right? And that's really important for us to be in close proximity, to be accessible. But I think the next big question that we need to answer is now, how do we scale that even further? And is there a way to connect those pieces and to amplify that experience for everybody? So that's something we're thinking a lot about.
All right. Well, Greg, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm looking forward. I'm just a couple hours away from getting to do the Stranger Things experience myself, so looking forward to that. And always glad to see Netflix play in this space and just sharing this form with so many folks.
Thanks so much. It was great to be here. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and enjoy the experience tonight.
Once again, I want to thank Scarlet and Greg for being our guests on the show this week. find QUILLS FEST in the show notes and go check it out. Again, just $10 for full access for the month, and you can access it via PC VR or web browser. And Stranger Things Experience has just opened in Los Angeles, or is just opening, depending on when you listen to this. If you listen to it on Friday, I think you've still got till Saturday till it opens here in the greater Los Angeles area. I was out there last night. Going to talk about that in a second. And of course, they're coming to Atlanta, is where they're headed on the East Coast run. And the London stand of the show is still up and running as we speak. So, global, worldwide phenomenon. Let's talk about it for a second. There's some other things to kind of hop into. I do want to remind everybody that 40 watts from nowhere. Actually, it could be. Let's talk about that. Actually, let's talk about something else. Something I kind of wish I'd remembered to do at the top of the show. 40 watts from nowhere is open in Los Angeles right now, and no pro backers. You can also check your Patreon feed because you get a discount on tickets through November. This show from Mr. and Mischief, the buzz is building. I can see all of the hardcore immersive fans are like, oh, you got to go see the show. You got to go see the show. Because we were telling you got to go see this show. So if you're here in Los Angeles, this is a wonderful example of the form and a wonderful example of what can be done with the form. And if you saw the show and you want to dig in some more, we have a fantastic interview with Jeff and Andy Crocker with Mr. and Mischief themselves, just a few stops back on the podcast feed. It was the episode before Cosm, which is the episode before Felix, which is the episode before this one. I won't do the math. Check it out, and backers, check your feed for the discount. Hey, new backers, go back into the Patreon feed and find that discount. I think it knocks $5 off the ticket price for you. So there we are on that. Now let's talk about Stranger Things, the experience. I had read the review that Leah Davis did. I'll link to Leah's review. I'm going to do a little capsule in next week's rundown. I think the thing that I maybe wasn't prepared for, even though I'd read, is just how extensive and how clever the use of screens of all kinds in this production are. This production uses several different types of screens to bring this whole thing to life. I won't say exactly how, and it's very obvious the second you see some of them what's going on, so that's not really a spoiler. But what impressed me was that the combination of the build, which was very high level, the performers, because there's performers in there. What was kind of funny was I was behind someone, like a TikToker, very obviously a TikToker, because their handler was taking video of them right up until there was like, you can't take video anymore. They didn't get admonished. They were good. But in line, they were talking with some other folks being like, oh, I think this is going to be VR. Like, I think, and during the experience, which threw me out a little bit, they were like, wow, this isn't VR. This is people and things. Like, this is way more elaborate than I thought it was going to be. And the way it all gets put together just really is seamless. What's kind of interesting here is that there's a real sense that you're still in a show. It's somewhere, if you think of immersive as a continuity, and you know that dark rides are part, themed entertainment, theme park dark rides are part of that continuity of immersive. You have something like Rise of the Resistance, which is a dark ride that is doing immersive, but it's still kind of, at the light end of immersive, right? Like the far, far end for a theme park of what immersive means, but sort of like the shallow end of the pool for what immersive theater is. I'm going to say it right there, right? It's incredibly immersive for a theme park ride, but it's for a piece of immersive theater, it's, immersive light. Sorry, folks, that's just what it is. It's true. If you don't think so, you haven't seen that much immersive theater, I don't think. You just got to be honest with yourselves. What's interesting about this is that it's more into the immersive game, escape room, immersive theater. It's still not, fully into intimate immersive theater. The folks who've made this work, they know how to do that stuff. I know, I've been to their shows. The folks who've written on this, who developed it, they have definitely gone full bore. But this manages to create something that can get more people through, like you would in a theme park, in a themed ride, or in something like, I don't know, Dark Harbor out in Long Beach, the way that used to be. There are reasons for that. It's known that Maiko 2 worked on it, that David Wally and folks worked on it. And so you see touches of that, right? Like how we move people through from station to station. And yet it allows us to suspend our disbelief just enough, and kind of builds on that, kind of takes us up to the point where we're kind of more comfortable letting go of our concerns about the artifice as we kind of continue on. But it's not something that ever fully treats it as this is really real. I'm going to take that back. It starts that way and then kind of lets go as we go on, which I think is interesting and kind of effective. It's maybe not necessarily, the full deep dive that we want when we're looking for a fully intimate, immersive, that's, meditative, and where you have an incredible amount of agency. But if you wanted to sort of plunge your hand into the world of Stranger Things and kind of soak up the vibes and feel like you touch something sublime for a moment and get those thrills, that's there. It's doing it. And what's, I think, really important from an industry standpoint is it's doing it for a lot more people than the intimate immersive shows that the hardcore fan base here goes to will ever do. Much in the same way that Rise of the Resistance is bringing a lot more people through, or Smuggler's Run, which is my personal favorite at Galaxy's Edge, is bringing so many people through into this realm. And also really to the point, it's traveling to the people, right? This is something that Greg talked about in his interview, that it's about Netflix going to where its members are. And the fact that they're touring these shows and they're bringing this to markets that don't have a lot of the kind of immersive work we all know. And that's going to keep on going. And they're training more people, and they're going to be inspiring more folks, and they're going to be creating demand. This is incredibly, incredibly useful for creating that infrastructure we need for the immersive renaissance to continue. There have been a lot of big, activation shows over the past few years. This really does take it to the next step, the next level in what's possible. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of the lessons learned on this one applied. And of course, it is my hope that we can get even more verisimilitude, let people suspend their disbelief even more, let people have a little bit more agency. But as a starting point, as like the new page one in the low pandemic era, what a fantastic, fantastic touchstone for our industry. And most importantly, from the perspective of someone who likes Stranger Things, a fun romp with characters you love. And let's be honest, sometimes you can't ask for more than that. All right, those are my notes on the show. There'll be a much more condensed version of that in the capsule, but I thought I'd give it to everybody. Oh, look at that. The chord's just bouncing everywhere. Golly, what else is there? I'm going to spare you the original next 6 minutes that I recorded, and I'm just going to put it like this. Go ahead, join our Discord, all right? Link in the show notes. Start posting there, particularly in the forums. I'm going to be a lot more active there as Twitter kind of dies. We're not making a Mastodon instance, but we may appear on Mastodon. You can also find No Proscenium on LinkedIn. You can find us on Facebook. If you want to get your work, whether it is a show, a virtual world, a VR game, anything of that nature, anything that's immersive, a themed bar, submit at everythingimmersive.com. That is the only way we process show and event and game announcements and press releases. There isn't enough time with the volume we have to do it by hand. If you send us a press release, I'm just going to tell you to take it to Everything Immersive. Though, if you're looking for a review, do contact us at pitches@noproscenium.com. Of course, the Patreon has these discounts we're getting from people and these auctions and these others access to tickets. That's really exciting. But the reason why you join the Patreon is so that I can go do all that grunt work and not have to go do a real day job somewhere. More next time. We're overdue for a, for an irregular. Couple of things also coming down the pipeline here on the podcast feed. Next week, we're going to have an episode that's about the gift guide, which is coming out next week. And that's going to land on Wednesday. So we're going to drop that Wednesday. We're also, I think also on Wednesday, Patrick and I are going to do a special backer only episode about Andor, because Alex Gloom asked us to do an episode about Andor, and because I'm obsessed, more than usual with Star Wars. I'm obsessed with Andor. So we're doing that. And backers are also going to have an exclusive access that will expire and become public. We've got the audio from the meetup that happened at House World at Gymnopedie this past week. That is going to go up on the backer feed, and then after the holiday will be open up to everybody. That's the plan there. I still need to listen and edit and get everything fixed up. That may come a little earlier in the week. The point is that if you're looking to get away from your family, I got some audio for you to do. You got to take that call. I'd love to hear people record how they respond to this show as them taking the call to get away from family. Anyway, but maybe you don't want to get away from family. Maybe you just want to stay with them. That's good too. Sometimes I'm that way as well. Sometimes. That's enough for now. I'm not going to do, there was plenty, I went on a rant about Mastodon and social media and this, that, no one wanted that. I didn't want that. So I saved you from that. There you go. All right, let's do the credits, y'all. The associate producer for this program is Parker Sella. Music for No Proscenium is by Chris Porter of the Speakeasy Society and Solar, the podcast. Special thanks to Siobhan O'Loughlin for voicing our intro. This podcast is written, edited, hosted, screwed up, unscrewed up, fixed, published, social media promoted. I could go on because I'm feeling chipper. I'm Noah Nelson. And until next time, I'll see you at the show.